The snow was falling that night in February, thick and silent, the kind that muffles sound and swallows footprints. Sarah Miller was driving home through Wawa, Ontario, population 3,000, when her headlights caught something standing in the middle of Highway 17. Not walking, just standing. A figure in a pale dress. No coat, no shoes. And when Sarah slammed the brakes, the figure turned its head slowly, too slowly. Then it smiled and stepped backward into the trees. Sarah never drove that road again. But sometimes, on winter nights, other drivers see her too. That woman in the pale dress, always in the same spot, always smiling, always stepping back into the darkness. Few people talk about what happens in Ontario's small towns after dark, the places where everyone knows your name, but no one talks about the things they've seen, the whispers in the general store, the missing person posters that never come down, the roads that locals refuse to drive after sunset. These aren't legends passed down through campfire stories. These are real encounters, real fear, real people who lived through something they can't explain. This is what really happened in the quiet corners of Ontario. 10 true stories that never made the news. 10 nights that people will never forget. 10 moments when reality cracked open and something else looked through. In the winter of 2009, a family moved into a farmhouse just outside of Almonte. The Harpers, Tom, his wife Linda, and their 2 daughters, Emma and Sophie. The house had been empty for 3 years. The previous owners left in a hurry. No forwarding address. The real estate agent didn't mention why. The price was too good to pass up. 4 bedrooms, 10 acres, a steal. But the first night they slept there, Linda heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate, the old floorboards creaking under weight. She thought it was Tom checking on the girls. She whispered his name into the darkness. The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed against her ears. When she opened her eyes, Tom was asleep beside her, his breathing deep and steady. And the hallway beyond their door was empty. Nothing but shadow, but the floorboards were still creaking, one by one, moving toward their daughter's room. Linda got out of bed, her heart hammering. She opened the door. The hallway was freezing. Her breath came out in white clouds. And at the end of the hall, near the girl's room, she saw something. A shadow, darker than the rest. Shaped like a person. Tall, thin, standing perfectly still. She flicked the light switch. Nothing happened. The power was out. When she looked back, the shadow was gone. But she could still feel it. Watching. Waiting. Before you turn off the lights, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Here at Chills from Reality, every story leaves a mark, one you might not forget. The Harpers tried to ignore it at first. Old houses make noise, they told themselves. Settling foundations, winter wind, pipes expanding and contracting. But then, the girls started talking about the man in the corner. Emma, who was 6, drew pictures of him. Tall, no face, just a blank oval where his head should be. Sophie, who was 9, stopped sleeping. She said he stood at the foot of her bed every night, watching, not moving, just breathing. Linda found scratches on the inside of their bedroom door, deep gouges, like someone had been trying to get out, or in, 3 parallel lines, dragged through the wood. Tom checked the locks every night. He installed new deadbolts, changed the keys. But every morning, the basement door was open. Wide open, even though he'd bolted it shut, even though he'd heard nothing during the night. He went down into the basement one afternoon. The concrete floor was damp, cold, and in the corner beneath the stairs, he found something. A door, small, maybe 3 feet high, painted the same color as the wall, almost invisible. He'd never noticed it before. He knelt down, touched the handle. It was ice cold, burned his fingers. He pulled his hand back, and from behind that door, he heard breathing, slow, raspy, like someone who'd been holding their breath for a very long time. Tom stood up, backed away. He didn't open that door. He went upstairs, told Linda they were leaving. They lasted 6 weeks. When they moved out, they didn't take everything. They left in a hurry. Furniture, clothes, family photos. The realtor asked why. Linda just shook her head. She couldn't find the words. Some nights, when she closes her eyes, she still hears those footsteps. And that voice, the one that whispered her name from the corner of the room. The voice that sounded exactly like her husband. But her husband was standing right next to her. The house has been empty ever since. No one stays long. The longest anyone has lasted is 2 months. And every family reports the same thing. Footsteps, shadows, a door in the basement that should never be opened. In the summer of 2012, 3 friends decided to explore the abandoned mill in Elora. It had been shut down for decades. Windows shattered, floors rotting, graffiti covering the walls. But it was a local dare, a rite of passage. Go inside, take a photo, prove you weren't scared. Jake, Megan, and Chris went in just after sunset. The light was fading, orange and gold through the broken windows. The air inside was thick, stale, like breathing dust and rust and decay. They could hear water dripping somewhere deep in the building, the old machinery creaking, and something else, a low hum, almost like singing, barely audible, but constant. Megan wanted to leave. She felt wrong being there, like they were intruding on something private, something that didn't want them there. But Jake laughed it off, called her paranoid. Chris agreed. They climbed to the 2nd floor. The stairs groaned under their weight. Some of the steps were missing. They had to jump across gaps. And with every step, the humming grew louder, more distinct. It was singing, a woman's voice, old, mournful, singing something in a language they didn't recognize. They found the source on the 2nd floor, a small office at the end of a long hallway. The door was closed, locked from the outside with a rusted padlock, but the singing was coming from inside. Jake pulled on the lock. It snapped, corroded, weak. He pushed the door open. The hinges screamed, and they saw her, a woman, sitting in a chair, facing the wall. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Her dress was old, Victorian maybe, torn and stained, and her hair hung down over her face. Long, black, tangled. The room smelled like rot, like something that had been dead for a very long time. Chris called out, his voice cracking. Nothing. No response. He stepped closer, his phone flashlight cutting through the darkness. That's when she turned her head, not her body, just her head, slowly, impossibly. And she smiled. Her teeth were black, cracked. Her eyes were gone, just empty sockets, dark and hollow, staring at nothing, staring at everything. They ran, but when they reached the staircase, the door at the bottom slammed shut, locked. They were trapped, and behind them, they could hear her, walking, slowly, her bare feet slapping the wet floor. Wet. Why was the floor wet? They pounded on the door, screamed, and the footsteps kept coming, closer. The singing started again, right behind them. Chris looked back. She was at the end of the hallway, still smiling, her head tilted at an unnatural angle. Jake found a window, kicked it out. They climbed through, cut and bleeding, dropped 10 feet to the ground below, but alive. They ran, didn't stop until they reached Jake's car. The next day, they went to the police. The officer just nodded. He didn't seem surprised. He said they weren't the first, and he told them something else. The mill had been searched in 1987. A woman had gone missing. Local, 23 years old. They found her weeks later, in that exact room, sitting in a chair, facing the wall, dead for days. But her body was still warm, and her mouth was moving, like she was singing. Would you have stayed to see what happened next? Or would you have run like they did? In the fall of 2015, a truck driver named Ben was hauling a load through Manitoulin Island. It was late, past midnight. The roads were empty, fog rolling in from the lake, thick, gray, swallowing his headlights. His CB radio crackled with static, and then a voice, a child's voice, singing, "Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies." Ben tried to change the channel, But every station was the same song, the same voice, high, sweet, wrong. He turned the radio off. The singing continued, louder now, coming from the back of the cab, right behind his seat. Ben's hands tightened on the wheel. He tried to ignore it, told himself he was tired, hallucinating, but the voice was so clear, so close. He could hear her breathing between verses. He pulled over. Checked the trailer. Nothing. Just his cargo. Pallets of bottled water. Shrink-wrapped. Untouched. But when he climbed back into the cab, the singing stopped, and something was sitting in the passenger seat. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, pale skin, so pale it almost glowed in the darkness. Wet hair plastered to her face. She wasn't wearing shoes. Her feet were bare, blue, frozen. Ben's throat closed. He couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She turned to look at him, slowly, her neck creaking like old wood. Her eyes were black, completely black. No whites, no pupils, just solid darkness. And she smiled, teeth too white, too perfect. Then she whispered, "Can you take me home?" Her voice was wrong, layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. Ben didn't answer. He threw the truck into gear and drove, fast, faster than he should have. The fog pressed against the windows, and in his peripheral vision, he could see her, still sitting there, still smiling, still staring. He didn't stop until he hit the bridge off the island. When he looked over, the seat was empty, but it was soaking wet, water pooling on the vinyl, dripping onto the floor, and there were small footprints, barefoot, leading to where she had been sitting, and something else, scratched into the dashboard. 3 words, "I'm still here." Ben quit driving that route. He quit long haul entirely. Some jobs aren't worth the pay, but sometimes, late at night, when he's alone in his house, he hears it, that singing, coming from the room down the hall, and he wonders, did he really leave her on that island? Or did something follow him home? In the winter of 2008, a college student named Rachel was staying late at the library in Thunder Bay. It was finals week. The building was nearly empty. Just a few students scattered across different floors. Rachel was alone on the 3rd floor, studying organic chemistry. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The heating system clicked and groaned. She'd been there for hours, lost in equations and molecular structures. That's when the lights flickered. Once, twice, then went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, dim, red, casting long shadows across the rows of books. Rachel packed her bag. Time to go. She headed for the stairs. That's when she heard it. Footsteps. Behind her. She turned. No one there. Just empty aisles. Books disappearing into shadow. But the footsteps continued, getting closer, faster. She walked faster. The footsteps matched her pace. She ran, down the stairs, her bag bouncing against her hip, through the 2nd floor. But every time she looked back, there was nothing, just empty halls, flickering red light, and those footsteps, always right behind her, never stopping. She reached the main entrance, grabbed the door, pulled, locked. The doors were locked from the inside, electronic locks. She pulled again. Nothing. The footsteps were right behind her now. She could feel breath on her neck, cold, smelling like mold and earth and something worse. She could hear breathing, ragged, wet. She turned around and saw him, a man, pale, thin, emaciated. His clothes were old, decades old, torn, stained with something dark, and his face. His face was wrong. The skin sagged, loose, like it didn't fit properly. The eyes were sunken, black holes, and his mouth hung open, not speaking, just breathing, in and out, in and out. Rachel screamed. She pounded on the glass, her fists echoing in the empty lobby. A security guard heard her, running from the parking lot. He unlocked the door. She ran out into the snow, barefoot. She'd lost her shoes running. When the guard went back inside to check, he found nothing, no one. But on the 3rd floor, where Rachel had been studying, her laptop was still open. And on the screen, typed over and over in a single document, filling hundreds of pages, was a message. You shouldn't be here alone. You shouldn't be here alone. You shouldn't be here alone. Thousands of times. She'd never typed it. She'd been working on chemistry notes. The document had been created while she was running, while she was screaming at the door. Someone had been sitting at her computer, typing, while she ran for her life. Do you think she imagined it? Or did something follow her that night? Tell me below. In the spring of 2011, a family in Kenora started hearing scratching sounds in the walls. The Johnsons, Paul and Mary, and their son, Tyler. It started small, just occasional sounds during the day, scratching, tapping, like mice in the walls. They called an exterminator. He checked the attic, the basement, the crawl spaces, nothing. No animals, no nests, no droppings, no sign of any infestation. But the scratching continued, every night, growing louder, more insistent, always starting at the same time. 2:13 in the morning, Paul would wake up, listen to it, scratching, moving through the walls, following the perimeter of their bedroom, around and around, like something pacing. Mary couldn't sleep. Tyler started having nightmares. He said there were children in the walls, crying, calling for help. Paul thought his son was just scared, feeding off his parents' anxiety. But one night, Paul decided to investigate. He drilled a hole in the wall, right where the scratching was loudest. He shined a flashlight inside, and he saw something. A hand, small, child-sized, pale, pressing against the inside of the drywall. Fingers spread, like it was trying to push through. Paul stumbled backward, dropped the flashlight, called the police. They came, tore the wall open, ripped out the drywall, exposed the insulation and studs. There was nothing inside, just empty space. But when they checked the blueprints, they found something strange. The house had been built over an old property, a house that burned down in 1952. 3 children died in that fire. The Fisher children, ages 5, 7, and 9. Their bodies were never recovered. The fire had been so intense, investigators assumed the bodies had been completely consumed. But the county records showed something else. The foundation had been filled in immediately after the fire. No excavation, no proper investigation, just concrete poured over the ruins. The scratching stopped after the wall was opened, but sometimes, late at night, Paul still hears it, faint, like fingernails on wood, and he wonders, if they opened the wall, if there was nothing there, then where did those children go? And why, on certain nights, can he hear their voices, whispering, calling, "Let us out, please, let us out." In the summer of 2013, 2 hikers went missing near Sioux Lookout, Derek and Amanda, both experienced, both prepared. They'd planned a 3-day hiking trip through the backcountry. They told friends exactly which trail they'd be taking. They had GPS, satellite phones, everything they needed, but they never came back. Their car was found parked at the trailhead, keys still in the ignition. Their phones were inside, wallets, maps, everything. A search party went out, 50 volunteers, dogs, helicopters. They combed the area for 3 days. Nothing. And then, on the 4th day, they found them, Derek and Amanda, alive, but wrong. They were sitting at the base of a massive oak tree, side by side, staring straight ahead, not speaking, not moving, not acknowledging the searchers calling their names. When paramedics tried to help them, they didn't respond. Their eyes were open, but empty, like no one was home. They were taken to the hospital, dehydrated, scratched, bruised, their feet bloody from walking, but physically fine. No major injuries, no signs of assault, but they wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat, just stared. For 2 days, they were like this. And then, suddenly, they woke up, like coming out of a trance. When they finally spoke, they both told the same story, word for word, like they'd rehearsed it. They had been hiking when they heard someone calling for help. A woman's voice, desperate, pleading. They followed it deeper into the woods, off the trail, through thick brush and over rocky terrain. And then they saw her, standing in a clearing, facing away from them. Long hair, white dress, bare feet. They called out, asked if she needed help. She didn't turn, didn't move. They walked closer, and that's when they realized she had no face, just smooth skin where her features should have been. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just blank, empty. They tried to run, but every direction they went, they ended up back in the same clearing. And she was always there, waiting, sometimes facing away, sometimes facing them, that empty face tilting toward them. They walked for what felt like days. No food, no water, no sense of time, just endless forest. And that woman, always ahead of them, always behind them, always there. They don't remember how they got back to the trail. They don't remember sitting down at that tree, but they remember her, and they remember her voice. Even though she had no mouth, they heard her voice, inside their heads, repeating the same thing, over and over. Stay with me. Don't leave. Stay with me. Derek moved to Calgary 6 months later. Amanda quit hiking entirely. But sometimes, late at night, they still hear it. That voice, calling their names. And when they look in the mirror, just for a second, they see her, standing behind them, that faceless woman, watching, waiting. Have you ever heard something that made you question everything you thought was real? In the fall of 2016, a teacher named Mark was locking up the elementary school in Cochrane. St. Mary's Elementary. He'd worked there for 12 years. He was used to the empty building, the silence after the children left, the echo of his footsteps in the hallways. It was late, past 7. The sun had set. The cleaning staff had already finished and gone home. He was doing his final check, making sure all the windows were closed, doors locked, computers off. That's when he heard it, a child laughing, high, joyful, coming from one of the classrooms. He walked down the hall. The lights flickered, the old wiring, always temperamental. He reached the classroom, room 107, 3rd grade. He opened the door. The room was empty, desks in perfect rows, chalkboard clean, art projects on the walls, but in the corner, by the reading nook, there was a ball, a red rubber ball, the kind kids play with at recess. It was rolling, slowly, across the floor, by itself. No wind, no vibration, just rolling. Mark froze, watched. The ball stopped, right in the middle of the room, and then it rolled back, toward him. He backed out of the room, locked the door, his hands shaking. The next morning, he told the principal, Mrs. Chen. She just nodded, didn't seem surprised. She said other teachers had reported the same thing. She took him to her office, showed him old photographs, black and white, from 1963. The school had been built on the site of an old orphanage, St. Catherine's Home for Children. It burned down on Christmas Eve. 12 children died, trapped in the dormitory. The doors had been locked from the outside. An accident, the official report said, but rumors persisted. The matron had locked them in as punishment. They died screaming. Mrs. Chen said that every year, around Christmas, teachers hear them, playing in the empty halls, laughing, running, singing carols. And sometimes, late at night, when the building is locked and empty, the lights in room 107 turn on by themselves. And if you listen closely, you can hear them, singing, Silent Night, over and over. Mark tried to ignore it. He'd worked there for years without incident. But after that night, things changed. He started seeing them. Children in old-fashioned clothes, standing in hallways, disappearing around corners. Other teachers saw them too. No one talked about it openly, but everyone knew. And at Christmas, the school feels different, colder, heavier, like the building itself is holding its breath. Mark retired last year, but the new teacher, in room 107, she's already heard them. The children who never left, the children who are still waiting, still playing, still singing. If this story gave you chills, leave a like and stay in the dark with us. In the winter of 2010, a gas station attendant named Maria was working the night shift in Dryden, the Petro-Canada on Highway 17. It was a lonely job, especially in winter. Travelers were rare. Most people didn't drive through at night. Too dangerous, too cold. The station sat alone, surrounded by forest. The nearest town was 30 kilometers away. Maria didn't mind the solitude. She read, listened to music. The shifts were long but quiet. Around 3 in the morning, a man walked in. The bell above the door chimed. Maria looked up. He was tall, thin, wearing a long black coat. His face was pale, too pale, like he'd never seen the sun. His eyes were dark, sunken. He didn't say anything, just walked past the counter, headed to the back of the store, to the cooler section. Maria watched him on the security monitor. 4 screens showing different angles. He stood in front of the cooler, staring at the glass, not moving, not opening the door, just staring. For 10 minutes. Maria felt uneasy. She called out, "Can I help you find something?" No response. He didn't move, didn't acknowledge her. She waited another minute, then walked to the back. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The cooler hummed, but he was gone. She looked around. No one. The bathroom door was open, empty. The storage room, locked. There was no other exit, no windows, just solid walls. He'd vanished. She went back to the counter, her heart pounding, and he was standing there, right in front of her, on the other side of the counter. She screamed, stumbled backward. He tilted his head, like a dog hearing a strange sound, and in a voice that sounded like static, like radio interference. He said, "I've been waiting for you." Maria ran, out the side door, into the parking lot. She didn't stop until she reached her car, locked the doors, called the police. When they arrived, they checked the tapes. The man was there, on camera, walking in, standing in the back. But when Maria ran, the tape showed her running from nothing, just empty air. The counter was empty, no one there. But her reaction was real. The terror, the screaming, all captured. The police couldn't explain it. Maria quit that night, and she never went back. But the gas station is still there. And other attendants have reported the same thing. A tall man in a black coat, always appearing around 3 in the morning, always staring, always waiting, and always saying the same thing. "I've been waiting for you." The current attendant refuses to work alone, and the owner installed extra lights. But nothing helps, because some things don't care about light. Some things exist in the space between, and they're always waiting. In the spring of 2014, a man named Eric bought a cabin near Parry Sound. It was old, built in the 30s, secluded, 10 kilometers from the nearest neighbor, perfect for weekend getaways, fishing, hiking, peace and quiet. The price was reasonable, almost too reasonable, but Eric didn't ask questions. He was just happy to have his own place. But the first night he stayed there, something felt wrong. The cabin was too quiet, like the forest itself was holding its breath. He made dinner, drank a beer, tried to relax. Around midnight, he went to bed. The mattress was old, lumpy, but comfortable enough. He was almost asleep when he heard it. Knocking. Slow. Rhythmic. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Eric sat up, listened. The knocking was coming from the front door. He checked his phone. No service. No way to call anyone. He got out of bed, walked to the door. "Who's there?" No answer. Just silence. He looked through the peephole. Nothing. Just darkness. Trees swaying in the wind. He opened the door. No one there. The porch was empty. The dirt driveway undisturbed. He closed the door, locked it. Went back to bed. The knocking started again. This time, it was coming from inside the walls, behind the headboard. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. He turned on every light, searched the cabin. Nothing. But the knocking continued, all night. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. It moved, from room to room, always behind him, always just out of sight. The next morning, Eric was exhausted. He drove into town, asked around, Found an old woman at the general store. She knew the cabin. Her face darkened when he mentioned it. She told him the cabin used to belong to a man named Robert Finch. He lived there alone. In 2003, his wife reported him missing. He'd walked into the woods one night, never came back. Search parties found nothing. No body, no sign of him. But every year, on the anniversary of his disappearance, people hear knocking. Coming from the cabin, from the woods, from the trees. Always the same pattern. 3 knocks. Some say he's trying to find his way home. Others say he's warning people to leave, to get out, before the forest takes them too. Eric tried to ignore it. He wanted to believe it was just an old building settling, animals in the walls. But it happened every night, always starting at midnight, always the same pattern. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. He lasted 4 months. He sold the cabin to a young couple from Toronto. Didn't tell them about the knocking. They moved in with big plans, renovations, a new life. They lasted 3 weeks. And every year, on September 14th, the knocking returns. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. Like someone asking to be let in. Like someone who's been wandering in the dark for 20 years and still can't find their way home. In the autumn of 2017, a nurse named Jennifer was finishing her shift at the hospital in Timmins. It was almost 2 in the morning. The halls were quiet. Most patients were sleeping. She was doing her final rounds on the 3rd floor, checking vitals, adjusting IVs, making sure everyone was comfortable. Room 312 had been empty for 2 weeks. Patient discharged, waiting for cleaning and a new admission. But when Jennifer walked past, she heard something. A voice, calling for help. Weak, desperate. She stopped, listened. The voice came again. "Nurse, please, help me." Jennifer opened the door. The room was dark, empty, the bed stripped, medical equipment gone, but she could still hear it. That voice, coming from the corner. "I'm so cold, please." "I'm so cold." Jennifer turned on the light. Nothing, just an empty room. But the temperature had dropped. She could see her breath. The voice continued, crying now. "Why won't anyone help me? I'm right here. I'm right here." Jennifer backed out of the room, closed the door, reported it to the charge nurse. The charge nurse sighed, said it wasn't the first time. Room 312 had a history. In 2015, a patient named Helen Kovach died there. Heart failure. Sudden. Unexpected. She'd been calling for help, pressing the call button, but there was a system malfunction. No one heard her. No one came. By the time they found her, she'd been dead for hours. Cold. Alone. And ever since, nurses hear her. Calling. Begging. Always saying the same thing. "I'm so cold. Please. I'm so cold." The hospital tried everything. Blessed the room. Brought in people to cleanse it. Nothing worked. They stopped assigning patients to 312. It sits empty. But Helen is still there. Still calling. Still waiting for someone to help her. And late at night, when the hospital is quiet, you can hear her. Down the hall. Through the walls. A voice that never stops. A voice that will never be answered. To this day, those towns remain quiet. Streets empty after dark. Locals who know better. Who lock their doors. Who don't walk alone. And when the wind picks up, and the trees creak, and the fog rolls in thick from the lakes, they remember. Because some things don't stay buried, some voices don't fade, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. In Wawa, drivers still see that woman in the pale dress. In Almonte, the farmhouse stands empty. In Elora, no one enters the old mill. In Manitoulin, truckers take different routes. In Thunder Bay, students study in groups. In Kenora, families move away. In Sioux Lookout, hikers stay on marked trails. In Cochrane, teachers leave lights on. In Dryden, gas stations close at midnight. In Parry Sound, cabins remain vacant. And in Timmins, room 312 waits. These stories spread quietly, whispered over coffee, shared in hushed voices. Because in Ontario's small towns, people know. They know that some places hold memories, some nights hold shadows. And some sounds should never be answered. If you listen closely, if you drive those roads, if you walk those trails, you might hear them too. The footsteps, the singing, the knocking, the voices that call your name. And if you do, don't answer, don't look, just keep moving. Because once you acknowledge them, once you let them know you can see them, they'll never let you go. If this story made your heart race, hit that like button and subscribe. Because here at Chills from Reality, the fear doesn't end when the story does. It follows you home. It waits in the dark corners of your room, and it whispers your name when you're alone. Stay with us, because there are more stories, more towns, more nights when reality cracked open and something else looked through. And we'll be here, waiting in the dark, just like they are,